So, something I really hate about the mental health industry is that it's more about sociology and making society happy than the individual and what makes them happy, what gives them purpose. I say this because looking through the DSM-5 TR, there are a lot of diagnoses that are called disorders because they don't fit into what society perceives as normal. Take schizoid personality disorder, for instance. Criteria A for the disorder are neither desires nor enjoys close relationships, including being part of a family. Almost always chooses solitary activities. Has little, if any, interest in having sexual experiences with another person. Takes pleasure in few, if any, activities. Lacks close friends or confidants other than first-degree relatives. Appears indifferent to the praise or criticism of others. Shows emotional coldness, detachment, or flattened affectivity. Now, unless the individual expresses that these traits are negatively impacting their life and wants to fix themselves, I don't see how any of this is a disorder. Generally speaking, when schizoid personalities enter into therapy, it's usually at the behest of family and friends. Mostly family, because they don't really enjoy building and maintaining actual friendships. Well, not really that they don't enjoy it, it's just that they find it more difficult, and a lot of times they would rather just not even bother. But usually with personality disorders, people with personality disorders usually only enter treatment to make family and other people in their lives happy. It's not something they want to do, usually, unless it negatively impacts their life. So calling it a disorder is more for society's benefit. Same with autism. It's autism a spectrum disorder because we are different from the rest of society. Society views us as a disorder, as a problem that needs fixed. And this can be said for many of the diagnoses in the DSM, because it's all about society and how society views us, what society thinks of us, how society responds to us. It's not about our own mental health. It's not about who we are, what makes us happy. It's about making society happy, about making society comfortable. And that's something that really needs to be fixed within the mental health industry. A lot of affirming care when it comes to counseling can solve the problem. Neuro-affirming care, individual-affirming care, gender-affirming care. As long as therapists see the individual and not how society as a whole views the individual, but actually sees the individual and their wants, their desires, their needs, then that's all that the mental health industry should be worried about. Unless the individual specifically comes to them and says, hey, something isn't working in my life. I'm having a negative impact on those around me, and I don't like it. I don't like who I am. help me, then it's okay to view things from a sociological lens. But when an individual is practically being forced into treatment because their family or friends or whoever else in their life doesn't understand who they are as a person, that's when it becomes a problem. In my in my psychopathology class, which is for diagnosing, we watched a video yesterday about an individual who entered into therapy essentially just to make his parents happy. Iranian descent, I say this because multiculturalism is a factor when diagnosing. Iranian descent, he enjoyed just staying at home most of the time, not really socializing outside of the house, had trouble making friendships, keeping romances, because people didn't like how honest he was. He took pleasure in playing with his dog and interacting with nature. Now, a similar video popped up on my TikTok last night about someone very, very similar. And the therapist on that video, diagnosed the individual with schizoid personality disorder. I don't agree with it. A lot of times, people will be diagnosed schizoid when in fact they may be autistic. What we have to look for in cases like this is how the individual was as a child. And see, that's another thing about diagnostic criteria in the DSM. When it comes to multiculturalism, mental health industry looks at what's normal for a specific culture and then bases the diagnosis on that, which is where we get autism spectrum disorder and personality disorders and stuff like that, because they don't fit into the culture that the individual belongs to. And I don't see it as a problem with the individual. It's a problem with society as a whole. A lot of psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors, mental health, life coaches, doctors view everything through a sociological lens rather than a psychological or neurological lens. They may say they look at things through a psychological or neurological lens, but no, they are actually looking at the individual through a sociological lens because they view the individual as society is viewing the individual and wants to change, wants to fix the individual. And I don't think that's needed in the mental health industry. We need to be focused on the individual, not what society feels about the individual, not about making society more comfortable with the individual. We need to make the individual comfortable in their own skin. We need to help the individual find their happiness, find who they are, whether that fits into society or not. So that's all I wanted to say about the topic. I spent a lot of years trying to fit in with society. Throughout my 30s, there were a lot of times in my senior year of high school I tried to fit in. Through part of my 20s I tried to fit in. It doesn't work. It didn't make me happy. We need to focus on the individual, not society.